this was something I found really interesting that it's a little off point, but I found it fascinating because if Balaam called Balak, this is the beginning of the story. Why did God then get angry with him for going? I mean, why did the whole donkey thing happen in the first place? So to set all this up, the timing and everything of when this Balak and Balaam business was happening, this was during Israel's wilderness years. This was after the death of Aaron, but before the death of Moses. And during that time, this is the beginning of the conquest. Balak, the king of Moab, sent for Balaam in order to curse Israel. God directly warned Balaam not to go to Balak, and Balaam initially obeyed and refused to go. That was the first group that the king sent, and Balaam said, "Yeah, I'm not going to go. God told me not to go, so I'm not going to go." Then Balak sent for Balaam a second time, and this time God seems to tell Balaam to go. I mean, he does tell him to go, and then almost immediately threatens to kill him for going with the whole donkey and everything. So what's going on there? Now, a lot of commentaries and such that you read will say, well, God told him to go, but God really knew what was in his heart, and so that's why he was angry and was ready to kill him. But there's actually what I personally think is a better explanation for what's going on with this. So if I can have somebody read this just to remind us of this part of the story.
Balak again sent leaders, more numerous and more distinguished than the former. They came to Balaam and said to him, Thus says Balak the son of Zippor, Let nothing, I beg you, hinder you from coming to me, for I will indeed honor you richly, and I will do whatever you say to me. Please come then, curse this people for me. Balaam replied to the servants of Balak, Though Balak were to give me his house full of silver and gold, I could not do anything, either small or great, contrary to the command of the Lord my God. Now please, you also stay here tonight, and I will find out what else the Lord will speak to me. God came to Balaam at night and said to him, If the men have come to call you, rise up and go with them, but only the word which I speak to you shall you do. And again, that's if the men. So Balaam arose in the morning and saddled his donkey and went with the leaders of Moab. But God was angry because he was going, and the angel of the Lord took his stand in the way as an adversary against him. Numbers 22 from 15 to 22.
So then just a little bit after this is with the donkey and the angel of the Lord saying, I was about to kill you, but your donkey saved you. So at first, you read this just as a plain reading. It says, if these men have come to call you, go with them. But then later, it's like, I'm about to kill you for going with them. So, some people will use this as evidence of the God of the Bible not actually being consistent. This is one of the reasons I like to focus on parts of the story like this, is because this is part of our apologetic. This is part of our defense of the faith. We look through these things and understand, is there another way to interpret what's going on that explains what God is doing? And in this case, I think there is. It just takes a little bit of fussing out with the language. It's easy to be confused about God's anger at Balaam without carefully looking at the words in the context of ancient Eastern culture. So the first time the king sent for Balaam, it was just a messenger, a small group to come and get him. Well, when that didn't work, he sent that second group, and that second entourage was more numerous and honorable. And so first off, this is more dignitaries. This is more like actual ambassadors and type people. It's not just a random messenger coming out. The other thing is, it is an entourage. It's a bigger group of people coming. Now, we're used to thinking this in a Western context. Hey, somebody came over to my house and says, I want you to come with me to this other guy. And we're like, oh, no, or yes. That's not what's going on here. This group couldn't have just stayed with Balaam. They would have lodged in that city of Pether. So this delegation comes in, and then they sit down, and they're going to be ready to call him. So due to their status as dignitaries from a king, the men would have sent for Balaam the next day at their discretion and their invitation. Even though Balaam is a prophet that's widely renowned, these guys are standing in for royalty. You don't just disregard all of the formalities. They set up, then they call for you, and you come in, and then you hear what they're there to do and say. So keeping that in mind, God specified, if the men have come to call you, rise up and go with them, but only the word which I speak to you shall you do. And so first off, that if is a stipulation. If the men call you, you go with them. Otherwise, you do what God previously said, which is not to go. And here's again where the language gets tricky. in a lot of our English translations, we have if the men have come, as in if that was their purpose for arriving. That's not necessarily what that means, especially in this context, because if you look at that same verb tense elsewhere, it doesn't have have. If you read it as, for example, the King James, the New King James, it says, if the men come to call you. So what that would mean is he knows they've arrived, and God is saying, in the morning, if they come to get you to go, don't. Or, see, I knew it. I knew I was going to make that mistake. This if is a stipulation. If they come and get you, go with them. If they don't go. So to clarify, God already told him no. Balaam told the men to wait, and he's going to keep on asking the Lord. That night, God specifically told Balaam, if the men call for him, so in other words, they're set up camp, if I come and send word for you to arrive and then we'll talk, go with them. And then sort of to hone that in, that's why you have this passage right afterwards. God said, only the word which I speak to you, you shall do. Later on, God says, only speak what I speak. Here, he's actually saying, don't do anything I tell you not to do. I said, if they call you, then go with them. Instead, possibly, again, due to Balaam's greedy nature, he didn't wait for that call. Scripture says he just got up and went with them the next morning. So thus, in Balaam's eagerness to go, he sort of jumped the gun, and he disobeyed the direct command of God, because God said, if they call you, come. So I tease that out just because with the ancient Eastern culture and the language, there's a different way to understand why Balaam would have been directly disobeying God for going, even when the language seems to say that God told him to go.